The massive space station hung in the darkness like a dead moon. Its metal surface stretched for thousands of kilometers in every direction. Ancient towers and strange shapes covered its hull. No lights blinked on its surface. No energy flowed through its systems. For 5,000 years, the Eternal Nexus had been silent. Commander Heiyun stood on the bridge of her ship and stared at the station through the main window. Her blue skin showed the worry lines that all Zentari developed when they thought too hard. Behind her, the best minds in the galaxy worked at their stations. "Still nothing," said Dr. Minho. The tall Zentari scientist had spent his whole life studying quantum energy. His forearms moved quickly over his control panel. The Genesis core shows no activity at all. Engineer Suman looked up from her bio readings. The Valkyrian woman had green scales that changed color with her mood. Right now they showed deep frustration. "My neural probes cannot even connect to the station's basic systems. It is like trying to speak to a corpse." Professor Kyungho nodded his large head. The Eldorian's crystal-like features caught the light from his screens. "My harmonic scans reveal the same thing we have found for 5,000 years. The station's crystalline matrix is completely inactive." Commander Heiyun sighed. She had hoped this time would be different. The Galactic Council had sent their best team yet. They had new technology and new ideas, but the Eternal Nexus remained as dead as ever. The station had been built by the first builders, a race that had vanished long before any current civilization had learned to travel between stars. According to ancient records, the Nexus had once powered travel across the entire galaxy. Ships could jump from one end of the galaxy to the other in minutes instead of years. But when the first builders disappeared, the station went dark. For 5,000 years, every major civilization had tried to restart it. The Zentari had used their quantum science. The Valkyrians had tried their bio-neural technology. The Eldorians had used crystal harmonics. 3 other races had brought their own methods. All had failed. "Commander," said Dr. Wanbin, the human liaison officer. He was much smaller than the other aliens on the bridge. His brown skin and black hair made him look very different from the others. "The human engineering team is ready to begin their examination." Heiyun almost laughed. Humans had only joined Galactic Society 50 years ago. Their technology was thousands of years behind everyone else. They still used metal tools and chemical rockets. But the Galactic Council required all member races to participate in major projects. "Very well," Heiyun said, "but they will follow our safety protocols." "This station is incredibly dangerous," Dr. Wanbin nodded. "Of course, Commander. Our engineer Deho understands the risks." Heiyun had met the human engineer briefly. He was young and quiet, carrying only basic tools and an old electronic tablet. He did not have quantum scanners or bio-neural interfaces or crystal harmonics equipment. He had a hammer, some metal devices, and what humans called a flashlight. The team took a shuttle to the station's main docking bay. The artificial gravity was still working, though nobody understood how. The air was breathable but stale. Emergency lighting provided just enough light to see. The Genesis core chamber was at the center of the station. It took 2 hours to walk there through the long corridors. The chamber itself was enormous. At its center sat a sphere of unknown metal, 50 meters across. This was the Genesis core, the heart of the ancient station. Around the sphere, the current expedition had set up their equipment. Quantum field generators hummed quietly. Bio-neural interface pods waited for connection. Crystal harmonic arrays pointed at the core from every angle. The setup had taken 3 months to complete. Dr. Minho checked his readings again. "Quantum resonance is at 0. The core is not responding to any quantum frequencies." Engineer Suman shook her head. "Bio-neural interface shows no recognition patterns. It is like the core has no intelligence at all." Professor Kyungho's crystals dimmed with disappointment. "Harmonic frequencies produce no response. The core's crystal matrix will not activate." While the alien scientist worked, Deho walked around the chamber. He did not carry fancy equipment. He had his tablet and his simple tools. Sometimes he stopped to look at things. Sometimes he made notes on his tablet. The others ignored him. Commander Heiyun watched the human work. She noticed that he looked at different things than the other scientists. While they focused on the core itself, Deho examined the walls, the floor, and the ceiling. He seemed interested in small details that others missed. "What are you looking for?" Heiyun asked him. Deho looked up from where he was examining a wall panel. "Just trying to understand how this place works, ma'am. Every machine needs support systems. Power cooling, waste removal, maintenance access." Heiyun was confused. We are not here to fix broken pipes. We are here to restart the Genesis core. Yes, ma'am, Deho said. But the core cannot work if its support systems are not working. Dr. Minho overheard the conversation. Human, this is the most advanced technology in galactic history. The first builders were far beyond your understanding. They did not need your primitive maintenance systems. Deho nodded politely. You're probably right, sir. I'm just looking around. The alien teams worked for the rest of the day. They tried every method that had been developed over 5,000 years. They combined their technologies in new ways. They pushed their equipment to maximum power. Nothing worked. As the day ended, Commander Heian felt the familiar disappointment. Another expedition had failed. The Genesis core remained as silent as it had for 5 millennia, but she noticed something strange. While the alien scientists packed up their equipment with tired movements, the human engineer still looked curious. He was studying his tablet and making more notes. He did not look defeated. Tomorrow we will try the grand combination, Dr. Minho announced. All 7 civilizations working together. If that fails, we will recommend that the Council abandon the Nexus project forever. Everyone nodded sadly. It seemed like the right decision. After 5,000 years and countless failures, perhaps it was time to give up. Only Deho looked like he had more work to do. He was already planning his next day on the station. While the greatest minds in the galaxy prepared for their final attempt, the human engineer was just getting started. The next morning, Dr. Wanbin sat with Deho in the station's old observation deck. Through the thick windows, they could see the alien teams setting up their massive equipment around the Genesis core chamber. Ships from 7 different civilizations had arrived during the night, bringing their most powerful technology. Tell me about the previous attempts, Deho said, looking at his tablet. I want to understand what everyone has tried. Dr. Wanbin activated a holographic display. Images of past expeditions filled the air between them. The first serious attempt was by the Zentari, about 4,000 years ago. They thought the core was a quantum energy device. The display showed tall blue figures working around the core with devices that looked like metal flowers. Dr. Minho's ancestors spent 800 years trying every quantum frequency they could imagine. They believed the core needed the right quantum signature to activate. What happened? Deho asked. Nothing. The core never responded to any quantum input. After 800 years, they gave up and decided the core was broken beyond repair. The display changed to show green-scaled beings with bio-neural equipment. Next came the Valkyrians about 3,000 years ago. Engineer Suman's people thought the core was a living computer that needed biological interface. The Valkyrian expedition had been huge. They had brought living computers and bio-neural networks. They tried to connect directly to the core using their own nervous systems. They spent 1,200 years attempting every type of biological connection. Some of their scientists went insane trying to mind-link with the core. Still nothing? Deho asked. Still nothing. The core showed no signs of biological activity. No neural patterns, no life signs, no response to bio-neural stimulation. The display showed crystal beings working with singing towers of light. The Eldorians came next about 2,000 years ago. Professor Kyungho's people are masters of crystal harmonics. They thought the core was a massive crystal that needed the right sound frequencies. How long did they try? 900 years. They tried every harmonic frequency possible. They built crystal arrays that could be heard across 3 star systems. Some of their harmonic experiments created beautiful music that still plays on their homeworld. But the core stayed silent? Completely silent. No harmonic response at all. The display continued showing other attempts. The Thessians had tried psionic activation for 600 years, believing the core needed telepathic contact. The Mordani had attempted gravitational manipulation for 400 years. The Kalari had used electromagnetic fields for 300 years. The Gorthak had tried temporal manipulation for 200 years. Every attempt followed the same pattern. A civilization would discover the station. They would study it for years. They would develop a theory about how the core worked. They would spend centuries trying to prove their theory. They would fail. They would declare the station permanently broken and leave. What about humans? Deho asked. What was our first theory? Dr. Wanbin smiled. We have only been here for 6 months, but our scientists on Earth have been studying the data from previous expeditions. They have several ideas, such as, Dr. Jiwan thinks it might be a mechanical system that needs physical repair. Engineer Nari believes it could be an electrical problem. Professor Minji suspects it might be a software issue that needs proper commands. Deho nodded. Simple explanations for a simple problem. The Galactic Council thinks our ideas are too primitive, Dr. Wanban said. They believe the first builders were far too advanced for basic mechanical or electrical problems. Through the windows, they could see the final preparations. The alien teams had positioned massive energy collectors around the core chamber. Ships in orbit were preparing to channel the power of 3 nearby stars into the activation attempt. This will be the most powerful activation attempt in galactic history, Dr. Wanban explained. They plan to flood the core with enough energy to power 100 civilizations. Deho watched the preparations with concern. What if the core was not designed to handle that much power? The scientists believe the first builder's technology can handle anything. The core has survived supernovas and galactic core radiation for millions of years. But what if it was designed to be turned on gently? Dr. Wanban looked at the human engineer. What do you mean? On Earth, we have old machines that need to be started carefully. You cannot just blast them with maximum power. You have to follow the right sequence, check the safety systems, make sure everything is ready. The alien scientists say the first builders were beyond such primitive concerns. Deho stood up and gathered his tools. Maybe. But every engineer I know, no matter how smart, still uses safety systems. While the alien teams made their final preparations, Deho walked through the station's corridors. He was not looking for the core chamber. He was looking for something else. The Eternal Nexus was enormous, but it followed basic engineering principles. Power had to flow from generators to systems. Waste heat had to be removed. Components had to be accessible for repair. These things were true for every machine, no matter how advanced. Deho found what he was looking for in a section that no other expedition had explored. Behind a door marked with symbols that looked like warning signs, he discovered maintenance tunnels. The tunnels were smaller than the main corridors, just big enough for someone to crawl through. They ran throughout the station, connecting all the major systems. These were not the grand halls that impressed visitors. These were the working spaces where engineers could fix problems. Following the maintenance tunnel, Deho traced power lines and cooling systems back to their sources. The Genesis core was connected to everything, but it was also protected by multiple safety systems. In a forgotten sub-level, covered by 5,000 years of dust, Deho found what he was looking for. A maintenance panel covered in switches, displays, and status lights. All the lights were red. Above the panel, symbols in the first builder's language said something that looked important. Deho took pictures with his tablet and sent them to Dr. Wanban. An hour later, Dr. Wanban called him on his communicator. Deho, our translation computers say those symbols mean primary maintenance control and caution authorized personnel only. What do the red lights mean? According to the translation, they indicate system shutdown, safety interlocks engaged, maintenance mode active. Deho smiled as he looked at the panel. After 5,000 years of quantum fields and bio-neural interfaces and crystal harmonics, the answer was much simpler. The Genesis core was not broken. It was turned off. Deho sat in the maintenance tunnel, studying the control panel by the light of his flashlight. The red warning lights had been glowing for 5,000 years, but nobody had found them because nobody had looked in the maintenance areas. His communicator buzzed. Deho, this is Engineer Nari calling from the human ship. I received your photos of the maintenance panel. What do you think? Deho asked. It looks like a standard safety lockout system. The first builders shut down their station properly before leaving. Every good engineer does that. But the galactic scientists say the first builders were too advanced for basic safety systems. Nari laughed. Deho, the more advanced your technology, the more safety systems you need. A civilization that can build something like the Genesis core would never leave it running unattended. Deho understood. On Earth, nuclear power plants had dozens of safety systems. Space stations had backup systems for their backup systems. The more powerful the technology, the more careful you had to be. What do you need me to do? Nari asked. Help me trace these systems. I need to understand how this shutdown works. For the next several hours, Deho crawled through maintenance tunnels with Nari guiding him from the ship. They mapped the station's support systems: power distribution, cooling networks, waste processing, environmental controls. Everything was connected and everything was currently locked in shutdown mode. The maintenance panel was the master control for the entire station. It had been designed so that authorized personnel could safely shut down and restart the massive facility. The first builders had not vanished mysteriously while the station was running. They had followed proper procedure and turned everything off. "Look at subsection 7, Nari said through the communicator. "Those appear to be coolant system controls." Deho found the section. According to his tablet's translation program, it showed that the primary coolant pumps were offline. The cooling system has been shut down for 5,000 years. That makes sense. If you are not running the core, you do not need to cool it. But if we want to restart the core, you need to restart the cooling system first. Basic engineering. Deho continued examining the panel. There were controls for dozens of different systems. Each one was currently locked in shutdown mode. Each one would need to be restarted in the correct sequence. His communicator buzzed again. This time it was Captain Jiwan from the human ship. "Daiho, we are monitoring the alien preparations. They plan to begin their activation attempt in 6 hours. How much power are they using?" "Enough to destroy a small planet. They are channeling energy from 3 stars directly into the core chamber." Deho looked at the maintenance panel with worry. If the cooling systems were offline and someone pumped that much energy into the core, the result would be catastrophic. "Captain, can you contact Commander Hyun? I need to speak with her. She is very busy with the final preparations. Can this wait?" "No, ma'am. This is urgent." An hour later, Commander Hyun arrived at the maintenance tunnel with Dr. Minho, Engineer Suman, and Professor Kyung-ho. They had to crawl through the narrow space to reach Deho's location. None of them looked happy about it. "This better be important, human," Dr. Minho said. His quantum scanner was too large for the tunnel, so he had to carry it in pieces. "I found the station's master control panel," Deho said, pointing to the dusty console. "The Genesis core is not broken. It's in maintenance mode." Engineer Suman looked at the panel with her bio-neural sensors. "This is just a simple control system. It cannot possibly control something as advanced as the Genesis core." "But look at these indicators," Deho said. "They show that the coolant systems are offline. If you pump star-level energy into the core without cooling, the core will not overheat," Professor Kyung-ho interrupted. "The first builder's technology is beyond such limitations." Commander Hyun studied the panel. Her translator was having trouble with some of the symbols. "What exactly are you suggesting, Deho?" "I think the first builders left operating instructions. This panel shows the proper startup sequence. We need to activate the support systems first, then bring the core online gradually." Dr. Minho laughed. "You want us to abandon 5,000 years of scientific research because you found some switches in a maintenance tunnel? I want us to try the simple solution before we destroy the station." "Destroy the station?" Commander Hyun asked. Deho pointed to the cooling system indicators. "If the coolant pumps are offline and you channel that much energy into the core, the heat buildup will be enormous. The station could explode." "Impossible," Engineer Suman said. "Our bio-neural analysis shows the station can handle unlimited energy input. How can your analysis be accurate if the station has been shut down for 5,000 years?" Deho asked. The question made everyone pause. They had been analyzing a dead station and assuming it was ready for activation. But what if they were wrong? Commander Hyun looked at her scientists. "Is there any possibility the human is correct?" Dr. Minho checked his quantum scanner. "The quantum signatures are stable." "I detect no risk," Engineer Suman nodded. "Bio-neural patterns show no danger indicators." Professor Kyung-ho agreed. "Harmonic resonance indicates the station is ready for activation." But Commander Hyun noticed something. All their equipment was designed to analyze active systems. How accurate could it be when examining systems that had been offline for millennia? "Deho," she said, "what would you need to test your theory?" "Permission to activate the support systems. Just the basic ones: power distribution, cooling, environmental controls." "If I'm wrong, we can shut them down and proceed with your plan," Dr. Minho objected. "Commander, this human has no qualifications to operate first builder technology. He could damage systems that we might be able to repair. What he could damage is a station that has been completely dead for 5,000 years." Commander Hyun pointed out. "Our attempts have never worked. Perhaps it is time to try something different." The alien scientists exchanged worried looks. They had spent months preparing for the grand activation attempt. Ships from 7 civilizations were in position. The energy collectors were ready. Everything was prepared for the most ambitious project in galactic history. "Give me 1 hour," Deho said. "If the support systems don't respond, I'll step aside and let you proceed." Commander Heyoon made her decision. 1 hour. "But if anything goes wrong, you will take full responsibility." Deho nodded and turned to the maintenance panel. According to the operating instructions, the first step was to activate the primary power distribution network. He found the correct switch and looked at the others. "Here we go," he said, and flipped the switch. Lights began to flicker on throughout the maintenance tunnel. The lights that came on in the maintenance tunnel were dim and yellow, but they were the first lights the Eternal Nexus had produced in 5,000 years. Deho felt a surge of excitement as displays on the control panel began to show information. "Incredible," Commander Heyoon whispered. "The power systems are responding." Dr. Minho looked confused. "But our quantum scan showed no power flow. How is this possible?" "Because the power was there all along," Deho explained. "It was just locked behind safety systems." He pointed to the control panel. "Look, the station has been running on minimum emergency power this whole time. Just enough to keep the safety systems active." Engineer Suman checked her bio-neural scanner. "I am detecting massive biological activity throughout the station." "How did we miss this?" "You were looking for active systems," Deho said. "But these were standby systems. They were waiting for the right signal to wake up." The control panel now showed dozens of green lights where red ones had been before. According to the translated labels, primary power was flowing to all major sections of the station. "What's next?" Commander Heyoon asked. Deho consulted the operating instructions on the panel. "Environmental systems. The station needs to stabilize its atmosphere and temperature before we can safely activate the main systems." He found the environmental controls and began the startup sequence. Throughout the station, air recycling systems that had been dormant for millennia began to hum to life. Fresh air started flowing through the corridors. Professor Kyung-ho's crystal features were glowing with amazement. "The harmonic signatures are completely different now." "The station is singing." "Singing?" Deho asked. "Every crystal in my body can feel it. The station is producing harmonics across thousands of frequencies. It is like a massive musical instrument tuning itself." The next step was cooling systems. This was the most important part. If Deho was right about the cooling being necessary, the system should show problems that needed to be fixed. He activated the coolant pumps and immediately saw warning indicators. The panel showed that coolant lines were blocked in several locations. 5,000 years of sitting idle had allowed debris to accumulate in the pipes. "There," Deho said, pointing to the warnings. "If we had tried to activate the core without fixing this, the cooling system would have failed." Commander Heyoon looked at the indicators. Even with her translator, she could understand that red warnings meant problems. "What do we need to do?" "Clear the blockages. The panel shows where they are located." Deho gathered his tools. "This is basic maintenance work." Dr. Minho looked skeptical. "You want to fix a first builder cooling system with primitive human tools?" "Sometimes primitive tools are exactly what you need," Deho said. The first blockage was in a coolant line near the core chamber. When Deho opened the access panel, he found exactly what he expected. 5,000 years of accumulated dust and debris had created a solid plug in the pipe. He used his hammer and a metal rod to break up the blockage. It was not elegant work, but it was effective. When the debris cleared, coolant began flowing through the pipe for the first time in millennia. "Remarkable," Engineer Suman said. "The bio-neural networks are responding to the coolant flow. It is like watching a sleeping giant wake up." The second blockage was in the station's main cooling tower. Deho had to climb through a narrow shaft to reach it. The work was dirty and difficult, but within an hour, he had the coolant flowing freely again. Back at the control panel, the cooling system indicators were showing green. The station was now maintaining proper temperature in all sections. "Environmental system stable," Deho reported. "Coolant flow normal. Power distribution active. The station is ready for core activation." But Commander Heyoon was getting urgent messages from the alien fleets in orbit. "The other civilizations are demanding to know why we are delaying the grand activation. They have traveled across the galaxy for this moment. Tell them we need a few more hours," Deho said. "I want to run through the complete startup checklist." "Checklist?" Dr. Minho asked. Deho pointed to a section of the control panel that showed a long list of systems and procedures. The first builders left instructions for proper startup. "We should follow them. The checklist was detailed and thorough. It covered everything from basic power systems to complex resonance harmonics. Each step had to be completed before moving to the next one. Working steadily, Deho went through the entire list. He activated backup power systems, tested communication networks, calibrated sensor arrays, and verified structural integrity systems. With each completed step, more of the station came to life. Engineer Nari helped from the human ship, translating technical terms and providing guidance. "The checklist makes perfect sense," she told him over the communicator. "It's exactly how we would start up a complex facility on Earth." By midday, Daiho had completed 90% of the startup checklist. The Eternal Nexus was humming with activity. Lights blazed in corridors that had been dark for 5,000 years. Air recycling systems provided fresh atmosphere throughout the facility. Cooling systems maintained perfect temperature control. All that remained was the final step, Genesis core activation. "According to the checklist," Daiho said, "the core startup is simple once all support systems are running. Just flip the main activation switch." Commander Heion looked nervous. "What if something goes wrong?" "Then we follow the emergency shutdown procedure," Daiho said, pointing to another section of the control panel. The first builders planned for everything. Dr. Minho was studying his quantum scanner. "I am detecting massive energy building in the station's power grid. The quantum signatures are unlike anything I have ever seen. The bio-neural networks are fully active," Engineer Suman reported. "The station's intelligence is awakening. Harmonic resonance is reaching incredible levels," Professor Kyung-ho said. "The station is preparing itself for full activation." Daiho looked at the final switch on the control panel. It was larger than the others and protected by a clear cover. Above it, symbols in the first builder's language said, "Genesis Core Primary Activation." "Are you ready?" he asked. Commander Heion nodded. The alien scientists gathered around the control panel. In orbit above them, ships from 7 civilizations waited to witness either triumph or disaster. Daiho lifted the protective cover and placed his hand on the activation switch. After 5,000 years of silence, the moment had finally come. He flipped the switch. The moment Daiho flipped the switch, everything changed. A deep vibration ran through the entire station, so low that it was felt rather than heard. The Genesis core, silent for 5 millennia, began to glow with soft blue light. The glow grew brighter and brighter until it filled the entire core chamber. "By the quantum stars," Dr. Minho whispered. "The core is activating." Energy readings on every scanner in the system spiked beyond maximum levels. The alien fleets in orbit watched in amazement as the Eternal Nexus blazed to life like a newborn star. But this was not the violent, dangerous activation they had planned. Instead of channeling the raw power of 3 stars into an unprepared system, the core was starting up smoothly and safely. All the support systems that Daiho had activated were working perfectly, managing the incredible energies being generated. "Look at the cooling systems," Commander Hayun said, checking the control panel. "They are handling the heat load exactly as designed." The Genesis core reached full activation within minutes. Throughout the station, systems that had been dormant for 5,000 years began their startup sequences. Navigation arrays came online. Communication networks activated. Transport systems prepared for operation. Then the station began to speak. A voice filled every corridor and chamber, not spoken aloud, but transmitted directly into the minds of everyone present. It spoke in the language of the first builders, but somehow everyone could understand it. Maintenance cycle complete. All systems nominal. Genesis core operating at full capacity. Welcome back. Dr. Minho's quantum scanner was overloading with readings. The core is generating energy patterns I have never seen before. It is like quantum physics and reality itself are being rewritten. Engineer Suman's bio-neural sensors were equally overwhelmed. The station's intelligence is vast beyond comprehension. It is thinking thoughts that span galaxies. Professor Kyung-ho's crystals were resonating with harmonic frequencies that made beautiful music. The station is singing the song of creation itself. Every star in the galaxy is part of its melody. But the most amazing thing was what happened next. Throughout the galaxy, dormant systems began to respond to the Genesis core's signal. Ancient jump gates that had been dead for 5,000 years suddenly blazed to life. Transportation networks that connected distant star systems reactivated. On the human ship, Captain Jiwan watched her instruments in disbelief. We are receiving signals from across the galaxy. Jump gates are activating everywhere. The transportation network is coming back online. The implications were staggering. For 5,000 years, travel between distant parts of the galaxy had taken months or years. With the ancient network reactivated, ships could jump from one end of the galaxy to the other in minutes. Commander Heyoon looked at Daeho with amazement. How did you know? How did you succeed where 5,000 years of science failed? Daeho was checking the control panel to make sure all systems were stable. I just followed the instructions, ma'am. The first builders left a complete manual, but the greatest minds in galactic history tried to activate this station. Civilizations with technology far beyond yours failed completely. Maybe that was the problem, Daeho said. Sometimes when you are too smart, you make things too complicated. Dr. Minho was struggling to understand, but we used quantum field manipulation, bio-neural interfacing, crystal harmonic resonance, the most advanced techniques known to science. And I used the on switch, Daeho replied. Engineer Suman looked confused. The on switch? Every machine has an on switch. Even the most advanced technology in the galaxy needs a way to turn it on and off safely. Daeho pointed to the control panel. The first builders were great engineers. They built safety systems and maintenance procedures and proper startup sequences. Professor Kyung-ho's crystals were still singing with the station's harmonics. You mean we spent 5,000 years trying to force the core to activate, when we should have been asking it politely to turn on? Exactly, Daeho said. The core was waiting for the right startup sequence. When all the support systems were ready, it activated perfectly. The alien scientists looked at each other with embarrassment. They had spent millennia developing complex theories about how the Genesis core worked. They had built massive machines and conducted dangerous experiments. They had tried to brute force their way past every safety system, and the solution had been to read the manual and follow the instructions. News of the activation spread across the galaxy at light speed. On every civilized world, people looked up at the stars and saw ancient jump gates blazing with new light. The galaxy had suddenly become much smaller. In the weeks that followed, exploration ships began using the reactivated network. Distant civilizations that had been cut off for millennia were suddenly in contact again. Trade routes that had been lost were reopened. Scientific knowledge began flowing freely between the farthest reaches of galactic space. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. For 50 years, humans had been seen as primitive newcomers with nothing to offer advanced civilizations. Now everyone understood that sometimes the newest perspective was exactly what was needed. Engineer Minji, representing Earth at the Galactic Council, delivered the message that would change everything. Humanity offers the galaxy not advanced technology or superior intelligence, but something perhaps more valuable: the willingness to start with simple questions and look for simple answers. The Genesis core continued to operate perfectly, maintained by the support systems that Daeho had properly activated. The cooling systems kept it at optimal temperature. The power distribution networks managed its incredible energy output. The safety systems protected it from overload, and in the maintenance tunnel, the control panel glowed with green lights showing that all systems were normal. Daeho often returned to the tunnel to check the systems and update the maintenance logs. It was quiet work that nobody else wanted to do, but it was important. The greatest technology in galactic history still needed someone to change the filters and check the coolant levels. As he worked, Daeho sometimes wondered what other impossible problems might have simple solutions. Throughout the galaxy, there were ancient mysteries and dead technologies that the greatest minds had declared beyond understanding. Maybe they just needed someone to look for the on switch. The eternal nexus hummed quietly around him, its systems operating exactly as the first builders had designed them 5,000 years ago. They had built their station to last forever, but they had also built it to be maintained by engineers who understood that even the most advanced technology needed proper care. In the end, that was the real lesson of the Genesis core. Great engineering was not about building things so advanced that nobody could understand them. Great engineering was about building things that worked reliably, could be maintained safely, and came with good instructions. The galaxy was learning that lesson, one simple solution at a time.